This is CBC Here and Now.
On Friday, what appeared to be a breakthrough, a tentative agreement. But over the weekend, harvesters had their say, and they overwhelmingly said no. So the standoff in the crab fishery continues. That story coming up.
90% of those businesses don't have a way for managing their energy consumption and controlling their heating and cooling. So it's a huge unsolved problem.
St. John's tech company hopes a recent acquisition will heat up its smart thermostat business. Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Heather Gillis, filling in for Carolyn Stokes. There was a glimmer of hope on Friday, but upheaval continues in the fishing industry. The massive snow crab harvest is still on hold, and thousands of processing jobs are in limbo. Here and Now's Terry Roberts reports.
The day ended on Friday with breaking news. The Fisheries Union president announced a tentative deal that would end the impasse in the crab industry.
It's just a good news story right now for the province, and I'm hoping for a great result tomorrow.
Here's how it would have worked. The companies buying crab agreed to lock the minimum price at $2.20 per pound for the entire 2023 season. A big concession, since they had earlier only committed to a 3-week price freeze. But if the market rebounded, the Fisheries Union could ask the price-setting panel for a higher price. And in order to ensure an orderly harvest and avoid a glut at the province's 22 plants, there would be trip limits, with monetary penalties for those who exceeded their limits. For example, if a boat crew was given a trip limit of 10,000 pounds, they'd only be allowed to exceed that by 10%. Violators would not be paid for the value of that additional crab, with the money going to the union for an undetermined use. Greg Priddy was more than confident on Friday, calling the tentative agreement a significant achievement. But it all fell apart on Saturday, with the union reporting that a majority of fishermen voted no to the deal. Harvesters like Keith Boland of St. John's voted no, saying the wharf price is still too low, and trip limits that included financial penalties, what he's calling a slush fund for the union, are a non-starter.
We come in with £200 over now, we got to write a check to the union. So apparently that wasn't going to fly.
Boland says fleets with the larger boats and quotas were more accepting of the terms, but the smaller and more numerous inshore fleets were overwhelmingly opposed.
A lot of them are majority owned by companies. There's no secret out there. So I guess they're getting pushed by the bigger guys. They don't own what they're in, I guess. I own my vessel, along with 90% of the fishermen. We own our vessels. So I guess we can call our own shots.
So with no end to the impasse in sight, Boland decided today to turn his attention to lobster.
We have to do what we have to do. And I mean, I had to lay off 2 crew members already this year.
Greg Priddy was not talking today, but he issued a news release on Saturday evening. And unlike Friday's optimism, his tone was more restrained. The most important thing here is to remain united in our objective of standing up for a fair share. We cannot allow ourselves to fight against each other. We cannot resort to threats of violence or intimidation, and we cannot let it erode the leadership structure of our organization. So the standoff continues, with more than 120 million pounds of snow crab still in the water, and the window of opportunity to harvest it slowly closing, putting hundreds of millions of dollars and an entire industry at risk. Meanwhile, harvesters were demanding more details on the trip limits formula and were looking for assurances from the companies that they would not import crab from other provinces while enforcing trip limits on local harvesters. Like the Fisheries Union, the man who speaks for the crab companies was also laying low today. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
And the Fisheries Union, the FFAW, released a statement this afternoon saying there would be no resolution to the standoff until there is an improvement in the minimum price of $2.20 a pound. The union's negotiating committee is now working on a counter proposal to the Association of Seafood Producers. And still with that story, it's the second week in a row that there appeared to be a deal to start this year's crab harvest, only to have things collapse. The Fisheries Minister expressed his frustration today outside the House of Assembly.
I'm not sure where we go from here. I'm assuming Mr. Priddy is going to have to go back to his membership to get a mandate to come back to us and the ASP. Because I'm at a loss to where we go from here, to be honest. Well, the Premier was assured, I was assured, Minister David was assured by Mr. Priddy. Yes, we'll get it done. So, I mean, what do? Do you go away and say no? I mean, I take someone for what they tell me to be worth what they tell me.
Meanwhile, opposition leader David Brazel is calling on Premier Andrew Furey to step in.
The minister and the premier hasn't been sharing the information of exactly, who's at the table, what the discussions are, what's the biggest stumbling block here, why it can't be addressed as part of it. But the premier has to be front and center. Not one just to send somebody in there. He has to sit there and take a leadership role to ensure that people sit at the table and find a solution that's going to work for all of those in the industry. It's too important to the people of this province.
To Newfoundland's south coast now, where Harbour Breton residents are protesting temporary emergency room closures at the town's health centre. Residents marched to the Conagra Peninsula Community Health Centre on Friday. They say the closures are unacceptable because the nearest emergency room is more than 2 hours away. That ER was closed almost 23 days in total last year and has been closed at least twice this year. A former mayor of Harbour Breton helped organize the rally. She says the closures have become personal for many people, including herself.
My dad there back in middle of March was out at his patio and he fell 6 feet and he broke his ribs, which punctured his spleen and caused bleeding. Of course, there was a diversion, which means there's a temporary emergency closure where my dad had been taken by ambulance without seeing a doctor to go like 225 kilometers to the nearest emergency center, which is Grand Falls, Windsor. And when you experience something like that, it certainly brings to light how devastating it is not to have doctors in your community.
To the arts now. The final batch of East Coast Music Awards were handed out in Halifax yesterday, with 4 acts from this province taking home awards yesterday, 9 this weekend. Some of the winners from Newfoundland and Labrador were Mallory Johnson for Country Recording of the Year, Yvette Lorraine for Inspirational Recording of the Year. Big Space took home Jazz Recording of the Year, while Roots and Traditional Recording of the Year went to Jing Shaw. Kelly Loader and Fortunate Ones also took home awards earlier this week.
Well, after a nice taste of spring earlier today, those skies have now turned gray outside the Narrows here. 4 degrees. We topped out at about 12 or 13, depending on where you were earlier this afternoon. But those winds now gusting upwards of 60 kilometers per hour. But that wind shift, southerly winds, that's what we wanted to see here in the metro area anyway. Along the south coast, you're into that rain, drizzle, and fog. That's pretty much the story over the next little bit. But right now we have an area of low pressure. This is our weather maker over the next 24 to 36 hours. It's actually going to bring some snow with it as well, because we've got this big pool of cold air that this area of low pressure is going to draw from, especially for coastal areas of Labrador. Some pretty significant snowfall amounts for this late in the season. We've got a snowfall warning in place for Cartwright down towards the south, and then a special weather statement for the northern peninsula. We've also got some fairly gusty winds, like I showed you a little bit earlier. We do have those winds gusting around 60 kilometers per hour right now in St. John's, up along the northern portions of Labrador, or I should say Labrador, southern portions of Labrador, you're gusting at 30. But as we head through the night tonight and into tomorrow, we're talking about winds gusting around 80, even 110 kilometers per hour. That is going to be combined with some snow. We'll talk all about the forecast when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. And the weather in parts of this province hasn't been great so far this spring, minus today now. And it has had people reaching for their thermostats. But a St. John's company is hoping a recent business acquisition is going to heat up their business. Misa helps make homes more energy efficient with its smart thermostats. Today, it announced it acquired a company's assets that'll see the local tech business move from homes into businesses. Take a look.
Today's a really big day, and I think we'll look back at it as a pretty big inflection point for our company. So over the last 5 years, we've been focused on helping homeowners, residential homeowners, help on saving energy. But today we're announcing a really exciting acquisition acquiring the assets of a company that will now allow MISA to enter selling our thermostats to businesses. And we're really excited to be able to offer all of our energy-saving technology and solutions to help businesses save on energy.
90% of commercial buildings in the U.S. are small to medium-sized.
We acquired the assets of a U.S.-based technology company called Zen Ecosystems. They were based out of California. And they had a great thermostat and a really great web application to help businesses save on energy. So we met up with them back in December and went through all of the jigs and the reels and ultimately closed on that acquisition just a few weeks ago.
Introducing Zen HQ, the simplest energy management solution delivering the fastest payback.
Helping businesses is really important on saving energy. So particularly where we're going to be focused, which is small and medium-sized businesses. So small and medium-sized businesses represent over 40% of our greenhouse gas emissions from the buildings comes from those businesses. And 90% of those businesses don't have a way for managing their energy consumption and controlling their heating and cooling. So it's a huge unsolved problem. Lots of energy wastage going on buildings, and core to our mission of fighting climate change, this is going to allow us to help working with businesses right across North America, but really exciting to start that here. Actually, a big piece of today is a call to action to Newfoundland and Labrador-based businesses that, hey, if you want to get access to this technology sooner, we'd love to bring you on as partners, and they're going to help us in turn actually get up to speed and go through all those learnings with the product. So yeah, if you're a business owner and you have buildings here in the province that are looking for energy savings, we'd love to hear from you and figure out how we can help you save energy.
In other news now, the Nunatsiavut government is launching a new online language course in their dialect of Inuktitut. And after 2.5 years of work, it's all now up to a learning platform. And it's a part of the government's push to get more people speaking and learning the language.
Inuktitut is a core piece of who we are as Inuit. It's the language that Inuit across all Inuit Nunangat speak within their respective dialects. So being able to Uhalak or Tukisak or even Ilibniak as much as you can is really important because it's who you are. It's where you come from, and it's a core piece of our identity as Inuit. Anybody who's never really grew up here in Inuktitut, especially in Nunatsiavut, it's important to really claim that back for yourself. It gives you a sense of empowerment. We've been trying to create space for positive encouragement and just encourage anybody to uhalak as much as they can, whether it's one word a day, one phrase a day, one sentence a day. When you practice things, they become habits. So whether you're fluent or not, encourage and welcome Inuktitut in all spaces, whether it's at work, in school, in your home, in your peer groups. Even just to say the simplest words like nakamik or atilihai or ilidamnamik, and to really create positive safe spaces and to encourage people, let them know that they're doing a good job, even if it's just one word at a time. Let them know that it's okay to be making mistakes.
I just hope that really it brings Inuktitut back into our spaces, our workspaces, community groups, people within their homes, like it's both formal learning and informal where they can join through in-person classes and they can learn by themselves at home, because one of the things that we really want to push is that Inuktitut is the responsibility of everybody. It's something that people got to want to personally do. So the online resource is going to be really helpful for people to be able to do that learning on their own as well. I know that Inuktitut comes with a lot of baggage for us as Inuit. Like there's a lot of historical traumas of why it's such a hard thing for us to do. But at the same time, it's such a beautiful thing. It's so fun to speak Inuktitut, even if you have English and Inuktitut like one after another in a conversation, even if there's mistakes, like it doesn't need to be this high pressure thing all the time. Like you could have fun with it where you can, and I think that would it would alleviate a lot of pressure for people in learning as well. And like Roxanne said, like the more mistakes you make, the better, because really if you are making mistakes, you're attempting to learn, and that's the best thing that we really could ask for.
In other news, an annual service commemorating the Holocaust took place yesterday in St. John's. The head of the Jewish community says the ceremony and what it represents is as important now as ever. There was music, singing, and stories of survival from a concentration camp survivor.
Heidi Dreyfus, Rabbi Atnir, Goldie and Ali Beninga.
This was a commemoration. It's something that has been organized every year, we think since the 1950s, by the local Jewish communities. And it is a way of remembering the victims of the Holocaust and saying that they haven't been forgotten. But above all, it's a way of saying never again.
I always get emotional when I speak about this because the pictures are floating in front of my mind, so please excuse me.
In the interwar period, what happened afterward, people might have thought was unthinkable. And yet the unthinkable happened, and people fell into line. And we see those signs, not so much in Canada, maybe a little bit, but in other countries, we see the signs of intolerance, indifference, forgetting that there's a better way. So it's important, even if it's only 100 people or a couple hundred people, to remember it, to reiterate those lessons, to try and understand other groups, and to put your foot down and say no. So one needs to talk about old conflicts. One needs to talk as well about ways forward.
The fish became so small and they were so scarce that a number of us got together and formed the Save Our Fisheries Association.
Remembering the life of a fierce fisheries advocate who was also an author, an athlete, and a witness to history. More on Gus Etchegary coming up a little later in our show.
Well, after a good chunk of the province was seeing spring-like weather, snow back in the forecast for a good chunk, and we also have some more of this coming in. I'll get into the details coming up.
Welcome back. King Charles III has officially been crowned. Festivities continue in the UK today as residents there were treated to a bank holiday. Here in St. John's, Government House hosted a special celebration for the King on Saturday. And despite the wet and cold conditions, about 100 people came out to take part in the parade and performances.
We picked an awful cold day for it.
That's true, that's true.
Yeah. We only had a chance of to see him this morning on the TV, getting ready to take his vows. So that was awesome. I mean, we are part of the Commonwealth. So it's nice to see everyone now taking part. And there's a lot of people that still have a lot of regard for the monarchy. I like the Jack. The Union Jack to me is our heritage, our history. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the Union Jack fly nice and proud next to the Canadian flag.
I'll be 85 in July. We always went to see the royalty. When I was 15-year-old, we were out for the Queen in 1953. And they gave us all a coin and a box of candy. In 1959, we had stood guard on Parliament Hill. She came over in 59 to open the Toronto Seaway. We were known as the foot soldiers. She used to generally speak to every 10 person.
Right.
And she answered a question, we answered very briefly. Yeah, she was a young woman then.
I'm out on any royalty occasion, but I love royalty.
Yeah.
I have since when my father served in World War II, and I guess that's where my interest came from. When Queen Elizabeth was here for the 500 celebration, I left and went out to Bonavista and got in all the crowds and everything, and we met her. And then when I was coming home, here she was up to Purity Factories, right on my own back doorstep. And I've met Charles here, I think, 3 times probably in St. John's. And I just love it. Just to know that he's actually king now, right? You know, and I am Princess Diana, I love her, but you gotta let the past go, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, but I'm so happy for him. I'm so very happy for him.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. The absolute final deadline is midnight Friday, June 2nd. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
And as you can see there, Saturday was cold and gray and wet. Yesterday, reprieve. First half of today, reprieve. What else is on the way?
Yeah, it's nice to actually have something to talk about after weeks of pretty much the same pattern over and over and over again. But yes, a change, which is lovely. Not so much for other areas, but let's take a look at what's going on right now out there. So we still only have the Marble Mountain radar, so we can't really see much of what's happening across the eastern portion of the island, but we have an area of low pressure to the south, and that's bringing showers. It's been a wet day through Gander. 13.5 millimeters of rain has fallen after a relatively dry start to the spring in April anyway. And if I zoom out a little bit, you can see we have a cold pocket of air here, and that is really going to play into the forecast over the next couple of days for coastal areas of Labrador as we see the onshore winds continue. And that means that the temperatures are going to stay cold, hovering, you know, right now around 1 or 2 degrees this afternoon. But that is going to continue. And as this area of low pressure moves in, that does mean snow. So as far as temperatures are concerned, 13 degrees in St. John's. I haven't said that a whole lot. And temperatures through central between 6 and 7 degrees. The further west you go, between 10 and 13 degrees today. And then again, in that southerly flow along the south coast, only 5 to 7 degrees. It is amazing what a wind shift will do for those temperatures, that's for sure. Now, speaking of temperatures, as we head through the next couple of days, we've got this cold pocket of air up across Labrador. That's going to stick around, but as we head towards midweek and into to the beginning of next week, I should say, we're looking at temperatures warming up. Certainly by the time we get into Thursday, we're talking about temperatures in the mid to high teens. And then by the time we get into Friday, we're talking about those temperatures as well. And even more so into Saturday. As we head into Sunday, though, we're going to see some of that colder air move right back in for coastal areas of Labrador. Now, the beginning of next week also looks like we're going to continue to see this southerly flow, and that should keep temperatures fairly warm. Now, I'm not saying we're not going to see some cool days, but overall the trend will be to see some warmer days. Here's a look at live shots out there right now. Burgeo, Springdale, Gander, Badger, all seeing those showers and the potential for some snow as we head through the night tonight. Showing up as some wet snow on radar right now on the west coast, but turning your attention to the Avalon. If you were on the Isthmus or around the Isthmus earlier today, you probably heard a few rumbles of thunder, and there's actually looks like some lightning just off the southern shore there as well. Also seeing some reports of some hail. Now, when we see thunderstorms, we see that convective weather, and that is when we see hail. So I'm not surprised to see that at all. And that should be said and done, though, as we head through the night tonight, as we see some of that colder air work its way in. So here's the future tracker, just to time that out for you. Northern Peninsula, parts of Central, you'll see that change over to wet snow tonight. Southeastern Labrador as well, but the main event for you will be towards the early morning hours. Other than that, we're looking at showers for eastern areas of the island overnight tonight. As far as temperatures go, 3-5 degrees cooler as you head west, Northern Peninsula as well. And Labrador, you're looking at your temperatures well below zero tonight, -2 to -7. Now for tomorrow, that snow continuing to work its way towards southeastern Labrador, Northern Peninsula, higher elevations on the west coast as well. Don't be surprised to see a few flurries in the morning hours along the south coast, further inland and central as well. Few peaks of sun, though, as we head into the afternoon for the Avalon, which will be nice, but overall, the general story is the snow. We're talking about 15 to 30 centimeters for coastal areas of Labrador, 10 to maybe 15 for the Northern Peninsula. But other than that, a trace to 5 is pretty much a good bet. As far as temperatures go for tomorrow, 8 degrees for St. John's. Winds will be brisk. Southwesterlies between 40 and 70 kilometers per hour. Now, as you head towards the west, much cooler temperatures, 1, 2, 3 degrees. And again, breezy winds expected. And then for Labrador, temperatures generally between 0, 3, 4 degrees, but all the action, again, will be towards the coast. I'll have your long-range forecast coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Gus Etchegary, a powerful fisheries advocate, passed away yesterday, just weeks shy of his 99th birthday. Etchegary, who was from St. Lawrence, was involved in the fishery for nearly 70 years, from fish plant manager to president of Fishery Products International. And he's also in Canada's Soccer Hall of Fame and has witnessed major historical events from the 1929 tsunami and to the Truxton and Pollux disaster off St. Lawrence in the 1940s. Here's his friend David Vardy recounting Etchegary's legacy.
Everything here, I think, has to do with fisheries and dates back.
David, tell us a little bit about your relationship with Gus Etchegary.
Well, I've known Gus over the years in so many different capacities, but I'll mention 2 particular capacities. One was I was the Deputy Minister of Fisheries, and he was the chairman of an advisory committee to the Minister and the Government of Newfoundland and Labrador, and he led a group of people, industry union people and conservation people, who advised us in the department. And that was one capacity. Another capacity in which I've known Gus is in more recent years as a member of the Fisheries Community Alliance, which is a conservationist group of a small group of people that have been supporting Gus in seeking the rebuilding of fish stocks and the reestablishment of our scientific capability in Canada and our ability to manage stocks more effectively.
And that's something he was really passionate about. Tell us what he envisioned for the fishery.
Gus envisioned the return of the fishery to the levels of productivity that we experienced over the last several hundred years, because our fishery has gone through a number of ups and downs, but its ability to sustain a fishing industry has always been consistent up until 1992. There were ups and downs, but in 1992 we experienced before, and it was largely caused by a combination of overfishing and environmental factors. And so Gus believed that we could restore the fishery to the conditions that previously existed if we control the foreign overfishing. That was one of the key things that Gus believed in.
A science budget for Newfoundland.
What can you tell us about Gus as a person? When you read about his accomplishments, the list is long, a witness of history from the tsunami to helping during the Truxton and Pollux disaster. He started, basically in the fish plant floor as an electrician, working his way up to a president of Fishery Products International. Tell us about the man behind all of these accomplishments.
Gus was a great leader. He developed leadership skills in playing hockey and soccer in St. Lawrence, okay? He understood how people in rural Newfoundland lived, and he had a great understanding of the fishery. He was a passionate person, extremely passionate. He also had a clear understanding of the potential of the fishing industry to be able to sustain a high level of economic activity. So he had strong attributes of honesty, integrity, and loyalty. He had a strong sense of loyalty and passion. He also was a great humanitarian. He was a family man. He had a lot of friends, very close friends, and he had suffered health problems recently that took him away, sadly and unfortunately. But he recovered from many health setbacks over the last 25 years, and every time he recovered, he was stronger. He came back stronger. He would always come back stronger. So Gus was a man. You talk about a cat with 9 lives. I don't know how many lives Gus had, but he certainly had a lot of zest and zing and energy, and he was persistent, extremely persistent. One of his strongest characters was his persistence.
He passed just shy of his 99th birthday.
He would have been 99 years old on the 28th of May. Wow. Yes.
And what kind of legacy does he leave? What is this province left without now, without Gus?
What Gus left, he left an incredible legacy, and the biggest challenge to the province that he leaves is the fact that he's told us what we must do if we are to cure the problem. And the legacy is who will act upon his recommendations, because there's a need for urgent action to be taken to rebuild the fishing industry to what it once was. And so there have to be people coming out and stepping up and taking the initiatives, and the politicians really have to be much more aggressive about the fishery and more cognizant of the fact that the fishing industry is with us forever. The natural resources that we have are very abundant. Our non-renewable resources will only last for a short period, and then we're back to relying on the fishing industry.
David Vardy, thank you so much for your time and sharing with us about Gus.
Thank you for asking me.
Things like this can come along and kind of help people find creativity and a beautiful path towards healing that maybe sits a little bit outside of some of the things that we're used to looking at.
An art project with a healing and very personal purpose. That story is just ahead. Welcome back to Here and Now. Survivors of violence are reframing the concept of justice, processing their trauma through photography. The Journey Project helps survivors of sexual violence navigate the legal system, and they've organized workshops with local photographers for a traveling exhibit called Visions of Justice. Have a look.
It can be really difficult to explain where you've been and where you've come from and what your experiences have been.
This is so deeply personal to me. The person that I am now compared to who I was before my assault is like so different, and I feel like it's changed me on a cellular level of who I am and how I experience the world.
Survivors of sexual violence very rarely get the opportunity to share their story in full in their way, in a way that means something to them. And so the idea behind a Photo Voice project is that people take photos to represent a concept. What we were hoping for this year was that people would think about justice and what that concept means to them or has looked like to them, what it represents, and then take a photo that kind of shows what that looks like.
For my picture, I chose a place that I really enjoy, that I've been going to for at least the past 15 years. A place that I find really relaxing, and I feel at peace there. I guess my vision of justice would be to forever feel like I'm at that place, to forever feel like I'm at peace.
I think that everyone's process, everyone's path looks really different, but I can safely say that I don't think anyone's path is easy. I think they're all really difficult, and I think that it is a lot of work. At various points I've said to other people and talked about myself and said, it's like you're working a part-time job that you don't get paid for, just trying to process and heal and work through the things that have happened to you. And I think that things like this can come along and kind of help people find creativity and an artistic and a beautiful path towards healing that maybe sits a little bit outside of some of the things that we're used to looking at.
The Journey Project and the Photo Voice has allowed me to take a step outside of the chaos and the negativity, the court, the heartache, the pain, and it makes me sit back and dig deep into my feelings. It wasn't just about grabbing a picture, it was about grabbing a picture and I needed to feel it. With this stove, all of this ice and snow, these things that have tattered it and made it look maybe like it's not usable, it's all gonna be okay. That's gonna melt, justice will be served. I look at that like, one of these days that'll be me. I'll be back to my old self. Yes, there'll be years or whatever, months, weeks of this, I guess, weatheredness that you'll still probably be able to see, but I'm going to have that glow, I'm going to have that fire, I'm going to have that in me again.
Last year, I was at a different place with my grieving and understanding of my personal assault. So this year I wanted to put in something that maybe felt like how I was reflecting on it now. I thought that it was good to show a person that people could connect this experience to, which I think helps people understand it a little bit easier.
So I think the collection really speaks to the community and letting survivors know they're not alone, right? So there's this group of 16 people now who've put these photos together, and they all know that there's 15 other people with them. Everyone's experience is different, everyone's path, everyone's process, all those pieces look different. There's still 15 other people though who who know something of what your experience is. They understand a little bit of where you've been. There's something really healing about community and understanding that you're not alone. The exhibit does actually kind of tour around the province. We will show it in some of the major centers. It can really be felt when you're in that room and you're looking at those photos and reading the words. You know, I think there's something really powerful in visualizing someone else's experience in this way.
When people look at the images, and all the images were so different in the exhibit this year, I just hope that they see that this can happen to anyone, and we are all just people that you know in your community, but also that the journey that people walk and that this is for everyone is different and varied, and we just have to be kind to people and considerate, because you never know what people are walking.
This project definitely helped me realize what justice meant to me. I always had like this thought in my mind that it had to be done like more officially, like more like in the court system, but it doesn't have to be. It can be done on your own or like with your family, with your friends. It has to mean something for yourself.
Photo voice from last year to this year, it really allows me to sit back and go, I have grown, things have changed. It's still not perfect, it's difficult, but there's more hope in my photo that I chose this year than last year, because I decided that in the year 2023, we need to focus more on putting everything behind and healing.
Some striking photographs on display here at the Christina Parker Gallery in downtown St. John's. And we just have a look at this. Ned Pratt has an exhibit, Rhythm in Place. Stay tuned. Ned Pratt has an exhibit of his photographs here at the Christina Parker Gallery. It's called Rhythm in Place. Ned happens to be here at the gallery. Good to see you. So why Rhythm in Place? What's the meaning?
Well, each photograph is very much about place. Place being individual areas that appeal to me, random, where I feel at home and comfortable, where I can concentrate in peace from across the province. And rhythm, because it's the rhythm of composition in the place. So it's the rhythm of the design, the rhythm of the colors, the rhythms of the color in the place.
All right, let's try to enjoy some of that rhythm by taking a look at your photographs.
A sea fret is a body of fog that is quite close to the earth, quite close to the ground, generally on a very calm day. So it's a big wall of fog, and our house and the lighthouse are in front of it and casting a shadow on it.
What other photographers like to talk about? Because we could pick any of them. They're all so beautiful.
Probably Crowley's property, I guess, which is a saltbox house down in Ocrapick Cove, Conception Bay. It has been photographed by every living Newfoundlander, I think, and my dad painted it. And I've always wanted to photograph it as well, because it's just a strikingly perfect example of that kind of structure.
There are 5 other photographs here at your exhibit. What advice would you have about the right way to view these? I mean, they're not paintings, they're photographs, they're very large. Should you be far away? Should you be close? You took them.
Yep, I did. It varies from photograph to photograph. Generally, you want to do both. You want to get close, you want to be far away. Certain photographs, like the sea fret that we talked about, it's very interesting to come up really tight, look at it, and see the lack of information. And then as you pull back, the image actually comes together, so you can see what you're dealing with. But in all the photographs, there's very interesting details up close, in my opinion, textures. And again, when you pull back, you're really concentrating on the design, which is an important part of all of them. So I think you just have a look and do what you feel like.
I have to say, it's very relaxing being here, looking at them all, taking our time, having a breath, very, very zen. Good luck with the exhibit.
Thank you very much.
Alberta's Premier is asking for federal assistance to deal with wildfires raging in parts of that province. Justin Trudeau says Ottawa will be there with support.
I assured Danielle that we will be there to help. We talked a lot about the different ways the federal government can help, and we will be working to make sure that we're supporting Albertans right across the province as necessary.
Close to 30,000 people have been forced to flee their homes in central and northern Alberta. There are about 100 active fires, and nearly 30 of them are burning out of control. Today, Manitoba announced it plans to send water bombers and other air support. Fire crews from BC and Ontario are also helping out. A province-wide emergency has been in effect since Saturday. And Ottawa has unveiled $390 million in new funding to deal with gang violence and gun-related crimes.
Strong borders, strong laws and enforcement, and strong prevention. And it's only with that strong plan that is based on these 3 pillars that we can get guns off of our streets and prevent further loss.
The money will be provided to provinces and territories over 5 years. The Public Safety Minister says today's announcement builds on Ottawa's 2017 initiative, Take Action Against Gun and Gang Violence. He says it's designed to help law enforcement and to support crime prevention programs. According to the government, gang-related homicides in Canada's largest cities have almost doubled since 2013. And Mother's Day is still 6 days away, but a special market was held on Saturday in St. John's for shoppers, and it supported a good cause, Mothers of Avalon. The nonprofit organization supports mothers and caregivers in need. We'll be right back.
Well, some of us are certainly going to see some snow as we head through the day tomorrow and into Wednesday, particularly coastal areas of Labrador and southeastern areas of Labrador. And the reason for that is an area of low pressure. It's also going to bring some fairly gusty winds through the day tomorrow and through a good chunk of Wednesday as well, especially for those of you in southeastern Labrador. That will continue. The rest of us should actually see some clearing skies as we head through the day on Wednesday. Temperatures relatively nice, between 5 and about 7 degrees for most of the island. Northern Peninsula, you'll still hang on to the chance of some flurries through the day. Stay cloudy into the afternoon and evening hours, but your temperatures will be hovering between 2 and 3 degrees. Now, Lab West, you're going to sit this one out. You're sitting around 8 degrees for your Wednesday under lots of sun. Now, take a look at the forecast for Thursday. Things are really starting to feel spring-like out there, between 7 to 10 degrees across the board as we head into Thursday. A little cooler, though, for coastal areas of Labrador. Your temperatures will be hovering in the single digits, just barely. Otherwise, between 9 and 10 degrees for the rest of the big land. Again, lots of sunshine in the forecast. Southerly flow, although Thursday winds will start to ease, which is good news. Now take a look at this long range forecast. It is a beauty. Temperatures really starting to warm up. Finally talking about spring-like temperatures for St. John's and eastern Newfoundland. I've been waiting for this forecast for a while, but between 10 and about 17 degrees. Now it does look like we'll see some showers move in late day Saturday, but overall, hopefully that 17 degrees sticks around, but that's certainly what it's looking like at the moment. Now for central Newfoundland, your temperatures Friday and Saturday looking like they'll sit in the teens. Overnight lows not too bad either, between 5 and 9 degrees, but again, those late day showers, they'll move in pretty much for most of the island. And western Newfoundland, you're looking at a similar warm up as well. Now for Labrador, your temperatures might reach the 20-degree mark by the time we get into Friday. A little cool down for Saturday, but still beautiful. 12 degrees with that chance of some showers. Western Newfoundland, Western Labrador, I should say, though, will cool down by the time we get into Saturday. Daytime highs only 4 degrees, and the return of the chance of some flurries. Take a look at this beautiful shot. You all know how much I love sunset, but this one is over Reed's Pond. Alan shared this lovely shot with us, and if you have any that you would like to share with us, I know there's lots of flowers peeking out now, send them to my Facebook page, Twitter, or email them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Beautiful picture, Alan. Thank you for sharing that one with us. It's gorgeous. All right, well, temperatures heading in the right direction after that week of gray. That is our show for this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care.
Good night.